In 1974, a book was published entitled Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Since that time, the word Zen has been increasingly heard throughout the United States. But what is Zen, and what are its origins and purpose? Stay tuned as we interview Mr. Marc Potter, a Zen practitioner, on The Better Part. So welcome to The Better Part, Marc. Glad to have you.
Thank you very much.
So can you tell me, with all the interest in Zen, what is Zen? How would you define it?
Zen is really about being present. People most commonly think of it as a form of meditation. Most technically speaking, it's not really meditation. It looks like meditation. Meditation is kind of the ground of it, the groundedness of it. The two largest schools of Zen use something that's like meditation called Zazen, which is, in English, means just sitting. It's a formalized version of just sitting that is used as the most that's the easiest definition.
Where did Zen come from? What are its origins?
Most commonly, the origin is thought of as the historical Gautama Buddha, who lived in about 400, 500 BC. I still use BC AD. They can.
Now, is this China?
No, India. Northern India, near Nepal. He was born, 400 or 500 years before Christ, lived as a prince. When he was in his late 20s, early 30s, he had this epiphany in which he realized that everything is.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is. And I could say it differently, but that's the most accurate way to say it. Yeah.
Everything is.
Yes.
That's an interesting thought.
Thank you.
I remember
Let's hope so.
When my son used to play Little League Baseball, one of the things they would tell the hitters when they walked up to home plate to try to hit the ball when they were very young was just be. Just be.
That's it. Yeah.
Maybe. So you briefly alluded to different types of Zen. Can you tell us a little bit more about different types of Zen, please?
These days in the world, the most common forms of Zen, in terms of the way it's practiced, are Soto and Rinzai.
Okay.
Soto, they came in existence about the same time, kind of pre-1200 AD. There was Soto is the sitting part. It emphasizes the sitting the most, and it has a little bit of Rinzai in it. Rinzai, by differentiation, is about something called koans, which are unsolvable riddles. The most famous one that Westerners have heard is, what is the sound of one hand clapping? That is a very common riddle that we've heard in America. There are hundreds of these, and a Rinzai student will work through many of these during, 10, 20, 30, 40 years of practice.
So it's kind of differs where the emphasis is. One is on sitting, the other type of is on riddles. Is there any particular type of sitting that's used, posture-wise, or is...
The sitting, yes, the sitting is very specific. There's a book, Suzuki Roshi wrote a book in the 60s, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, which goes into that sitting with a degree of specificity.
I see.
It would take us 2 or 3 shows to describe all of that stuff.
Is this, for instance, a sitting with the crossed legs, etc.?
Yes, exactly. And certain types of breathing, your tongue and your head and your spine are positioned in a very particular way. Mostly, you're just looking to be very erect.
Mm-hmm.
and relaxed and centered, grounded. That's why doing it in a full lotus is the best, but other forms are also perfectly acceptable. Paying attention to the breathing is one way to do it. The hands are in something called a mudra, which is like this, where the thumbs are just barely touching. Roshi said that you should be able to imagine you have one piece of paper in between your thumbs.
Very interesting.
That you're holding it gently. So,
Now, does the sitting, it seems like if you were to try to sit in a cross-legged position, perfectly erect, does this preclude, let's say, certain people from practicing that type of Zen? For instance, many people, for instance, cannot get in a cross-legged
yes,
position.
exactly.
They just can't assume.
Yes, very
Is
lovely.
that type of Zen just kind of off the table for them?
Actually, thankfully, no, because in America, what you'll see throughout the conversation is we like to do things our own way. Thank you very much. So the way sitting is done has changed dramatically. It's expanded a lot. People nowadays do many, many forms of sitting, including the way I do it, which is I just sit in a chair, period. And I do the best I can, and that's my sit. That's my sit.
So, well, this may not adhere to the,
The old ancient Japanese way of doing it.
yeah.
We're Americans and we do what we want.
Speaking of America, is Zen practiced throughout the world, or is it only present in certain countries?
Zen, these days, Zen is practiced pretty much throughout the world. You'd really be surprised. Most countries have at least a few Zen centers. It started, of course, Zen actually started in China.
I see.
Buddhism started in India. And myth has it that it was brought to China by a gentleman named Bodhidharma, who was the 28th patriarch. Long story. And the Buddhism mixed in China with Confucianism and Taoism.
Okay.
And so Zen really has a mixture of things in it. It's not just any one of the, in my opinion, it's not one of the pure forms of Buddhism. It has a little essence in it from some of these other Chinese cultures. Once it was in China, then it spread to other countries, Japan, Korea. At that time, it was just Korea, and other countries in the Asian area. And then, of course, in the late 1800s, it came to America.
Now, you mentioned Zen, Buddhism, Taoism. I don't know that much about this area, obviously, but are Buddhism and Taoism forms of religions?
It's a great question.
Uh-huh.
Not 114% of the world considers Buddhism a religion.
I see.
And in Zen, we try to hold the spot that says Buddhism is not a religion, never was a religion, was never meant to be a religion. We don't have a God, we don't have a belief system, etc. But if you look at Buddhism, there are gods, there's worship, there's prayer, and even in Zen, some leaders are referred to as Zen priests. So it's just, it's going to be regarded as a religion for many centuries to come, and it's really not one.
So essentially, well, from what I'm hearing here, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like that Zen actually started out with almost as a religion in other countries, and when it came to the United States, they tried to kind of strip it out of the context of religion and made it a practice more.
It's fairly accurate thing to say. Anything we say could be extrapolated, but I like to say that Zen has in it a lot of contradiction.
Okay.
Most people want to say, well, it has some paradox, but maybe not contradiction. I like to say, no, really, it has a lot of just plain contradiction in it and a lot of paradox in it. And in America, we've been good at that. And the Zen masters who decided to bring it to America, because it was a very conscious choice in the late 1800s.
It was in the late 1800s.
Yeah, 1893. the Zen masters who decided to bring it here felt that America was a place where the mind was open. Buddhism wasn't here. It wasn't going to be culturally pulled apart by ancient traditions. It was a very unpopular choice among most Zen masters. Most Zen masters didn't want it to come here. There are scathing things written about the heathen Western mind that won't appreciate it no matter what we do. But some teachers decided to bring it anyway.
Now, these Zen masters that came to the United States, why did they come to the United States? Did they come seeking, let's say, a religious freedom, or were these workers, let's say, came to the United States in the 1800s? Did they come seeking, let's say, a religious freedom, or were they workers on the railroad or something? Or
No.
what did they do?
No, actually not. First of all, the reason they came is because some of the masters saw that Zen was being corrupted in Japan because of a lot of political leaders had gotten their hands on certain parts of the practice, and priests were beholden to the political system to do things a certain way, etc. And so some of the teachers said, well, if we bring it to America, these people are very individualistic. They're, blah, blah, blah. This is going to give it a new field, a new freshness.
Yeah.
And that still seems to be, there's a lot of agreement that it was a good move to do. The historical nature of why it came, there was a meeting in Chicago in 1893, the World Parliament of Religions or some such thing. And someone got the brilliant idea to invite someone from the East to come to this meeting. And so one of the teachers came, whose name I've been trying to say for weeks, but there's so many names that are very similar. And of course, they're all Japanese names, most of them. He came, he liked what he saw. He was already kind of in this school of thinking that we should bring this here anyway. And so one of his disciples, a person named D.T. Suzuki, now we have two famous Suzukis in Zen, neither of which is the motorcycle guy, Persig or Suzuki motorcycles. D.T. Suzuki spent many decades in the States giving lectures, giving presentations, giving speeches about Zen.
I see.
Which is very different than what other leaders have done. That's what he chose to do starting in the early 1900s. And so he's really credited with kind of creating an introductory context in which it could be comprehended.
Do you have any estimate how many people practice Zen in the United States today?
I went on Google and I went, how many people practice Zen in the United States
Google will
these
tell you
days?
anything, won't it?
It says 1.2 million. That's what it says.
Okay, 1.2 million.
Yeah.
So that is a fairly small niche.
Yeah.
That really is, considering there's about 300 million people in the United States.
Very small.
So I know you don't like the word taught or teaches when it comes to Zen.
Yeah.
We'll come to that in a minute.
Let's come to that
But,
eventually.
Let's say if somebody wants to learn about Zen, I'll use a dirty word anyway, who teaches it?
Okay, so my recommendation is that you, in the beginning, you go to a formal school and learn. There are lots of ways Zen gets divided by the countries it's in, by the types of, the Rinzai Soto. But another way it gets divided is we have traditional schools in all of that mixture, and we have a lot of non-traditional people. I'm one of those non-traditional rogue people, by the way. I really recommend you go to a formal Zen center and practice for a while, at least a couple years. It's really a practice that does well after 15, 20, 30 years.
50, wow.
That's my opinion. But in the beginning, it would bode you well to go to a regular center. We have lots of them around here. There's one in Japantown called Middle Way. which is lovely. We have one right here in Mountain View, Cannon-Doe.
Really? Okay.
It's just around the corner from us here. There's 300 of them in the United States. We have lots of them in the Bay Area. So just pick one, go to it, sit. The basic thing is to sit.
Now,
do
these? I'll use the word courses. Do these courses or learning experiences? Do these cost money or are they free?
They're free. You're welcome to make a donation.
Mm-hmm.
Most centers, like I went to Middle Way for a while. It's not always true, but some centers sit in the early morning.
I see.
So you arrive there maybe 20 minutes after 5.
That is early morning.
And you'll do 2 periods of 40 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So you do 1 period of 40 minutes. You have 10 minutes of kinhin, which is walking.
Mm-hmm.
And then another 40 minutes, and then a little bit of chanting maybe or something. And then you're done. So
I see. So you can certainly fit that into a very busy schedule. It doesn't.
Yeah, because you're going to be doing that when you used to be asleep.
How does Zen benefit you personally in your daily life? What do you get out of Zen?
Good. You're going to give me a chance to rant here for a minute.
Rant away.
People think that Zen has benefits. Now, I'm not going to deny that during doing Zen, you might have some benefits arise. That could happen.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't bet the ranch on it. I consider it best that I would say, the best thing I could say is there are no benefits to Zen.
No benefits.
I would say that. Now, having said that, it gives me the space to say probably most people who practice Zen see some benefits or something that they will erroneously connect the dots to and say, oh, this got better because I did Zen. I'm also one of those people. I have an experience that says Zen benefits me. And my experience is it makes my life more grounded.
I see.
Now, I'm a person who most of you in this room know already has mental illness. And so for me, keeping that mental illness at bay and being able to function as a supposedly normal human being, Zen has greatly benefited that. I've recently claimed, and I repeatedly claim, that if it weren't for Zen, I could very well be in a long-term facility for a mentally ill person because it helps me so very much.
So you would say that Zen really helps keep you under control in life?
For me, it keeps me grounded. It's going to do something different for other people, but for me, it keeps me grounded.
So the benefits might differ from individual to individual.
I think they would do very greatly. I think some people would find no benefit. Because some people are walking around. Let's say we have a person who's walking around with a lot of anger in life, and they decide, well, I'm going to get this Zen thing because it's going to give me lots of benefits.
Mm-hmm.
So if you open yourself up in Zen and your thing is anger, you're going to become Mr. Angry.
I see.
That's because you're going to be what you are. You're going to become more of what you really are.
So Zen is not necessarily calming always.
No, it's going to be
calming.
No, it's going to be real.
Because I guess there's this image I have of if you practice Zen, you're calm, you're serene, but you can really, if you're open to anger, you can really become even more angry.
Yes, absolutely. That's my opinion. Now this is one practitioner's opinion.
Oh, okay.
It's not the opinion of anything else than one practitioner.
Okay. Well, that's fascinating. So, can you take me inside of a Zen session?
Yes.
What happens? What's it like, both physically and mentally?
Okay, so let's say you come to a Zen center and you're someone brand new, you've never been there before. You would typically come on an evening. We don't make the brand new people come in the morning first thing out of the gate. So you come in the evening. I would just pay attention. And most of it's quiet. A lot of it's done in silence. There's a lot of bowing that happens. So let's say it's your second time you've come, so you know some stuff. You would come to the Zendo. You take off your shoes at the door outside.
The Zendo
is the room in which the meditation is occurring.
Okay.
You would bow. You would walk into the Zendo. You would have a spot, a meditation spot in the Zendo, or you would just pick one. What you're going to see in the Zendo is a couple of chairs for those of us who don't sit the formal way. Most of the rest of it is going to be a black mat, a large square mat called a zabuton, and on that is going to be a pillow, a cushion called a zafu. These are all black. Black is the color of Zen. You bow before there would be something before, probably a bell would ring or something. You would bow a couple of times. You sit in the way that works best for you, whether it's in a chair or in any one of 5 or 6 different ways on a mat, full lotus, half lotus, Burmese, some other ways. The bell's going to ring. That begins the meditation. The meditation leader will ring a bell. And then you will sit for 40 minutes. Bell rings, you get up. You're going to do something called kinhin, which is kind of walk around the room slowly in a very meditative way.
Okay.
In a group, in a line, like a Congo line sort of thing. Loud clappers will sound. That's the signal to go back to your spot and sit. Once everyone is seated properly, a bell will ring. You'll do 40 minutes. You get up, and then you try to slowly get back up again. Oh, my body hurts. And sometimes after that, there are some chants.
Right.
Just kind of thanking the Buddha for what he did, this guy, not a god, etc. And then you go home.
Okay. I've got to ask you this. I am curious about this. Is Zen associated at all with the use of drugs or hallucinogens?
This is the only time I've ever been asked this question. No.
No.
It is not. It never has been, never will be. The only possible connection I could make is people in Zen are very fond of green tea.
Okay.
Because sitting on a mat for 40 minutes, twice a day, or at a retreat where you're doing it all day for several days, is no small feat. And so green tea which of course has caffeine in it, is frequently used and offered.
Now, is Zen different from mindfulness? Well, I remember mindfulness is another phrase that we're hearing a lot about these days. And what's different about it?
Well, I really, different people in Zen have different opinions. Okay. I like mindfulness. I personally regard mindfulness as an extension of Zen.
Right.
I regard it as a westernization of Zen, which is very good and very positive. A man named John Kabat-Zinn is certainly regarded as at least one of the founders of mindfulness. He did a lot with mindfulness in the medical profession. So that's how they fit together for me. Others would say something different, of course.
Now, is Zen primarily practiced by a certain age group of people, or is it across the board, all age groups?
It's ridiculously across the board.
Ridiculously.
We've got 3-year-olds, we've got 95-year-olds, everything in between.
I see. So you've got very young, not very young, but you've got younger people
Pretty
and
young,
older people.
I've seen teenagers come to the Zendo. We've had 90-year-olds come to the Zendo.
How do you become a Zen? I'm going to use the word not teacher.
Yeah, whatever works for you.
Zen leader.
You can swear on this station. Yeah.
How do you?
How do you do it? Well,
yes.
There's two ways. There's 2 ways. You can be associated with a certain Zendo or a certain lineage, and you can practice there exclusively for probably 20, 25, 30 years.
Wow.
And if the teacher at that facility over that period of time decides you're ready, they will start to give you, probably 15 years in, certain assignments.
That's a long time.
It really is. It really is. There's another group that does it much differently, so don't be discouraged quite yet. But this is the foundational traditional school that has kept Zen alive for 2,500 years. So
Right.
it's to be respected. It's a wonderful thing. So anyway, at the end of this long quote, we'll call it a journey, which is just for sake of conversation. If that person thinks that you're really one of the few people that can carry this forward into the future, something will happen called a Dharma transmission.
Mm-hmm.
This is a mind-to-mind, heart-to-heart, no words, no documentation kind of thing, where they just simply declare that you are to be carrying this into the future
Okay.
on behalf of Zen.
So
That's one of the two ways.
Okay, we're running a little bit
no,
short
I
on
believe it.
time here, so
I would believe it.
I do have a couple other things I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Is that, do you have any reading that you can recommend on the subject? Is any particularly good books?
The book I would recommend more than others is called Everyday Zen
Everyday Zen.
by
Okay.
Charlotte Joko Beck.
Okay.
There's thousands of books out there. I think it's the best one.
And is there a good website that you can recommend, or do you personally have a website?
Well, I have a website, but
Okay, well, let's hear
do we really need that, I guess? I have one of these free Weebly sites, so it's weebly.upcomingzenevents.com.
Okay.
There's not one website I would use. Well, the way I like to do it is I go on Twitter and I put Zen-related things in my Twitter feed by following them. So there's lots of those, and just put the word Zen in your Twitter feed and start following some of these groups. And they will put little quotes each day, and that's really a great way to learn more about Zen, because those websites, Buddha's Now and Everything Zen, and there's thousands of those sites. They're all good. They're most good.
Well, I want to thank you very much. This has been a very nice conversation, and thank you for joining us on The Better Part.
Thank you,
Marc
sir.
Potter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for watching today's Better Part show, and we hope you found it interesting. Remember that you can view this and other Better Part shows on YouTube and Roku. Also, I would like to invite our TV viewers to join us and become members of The Better Part. Visitors are always welcome to attend our meetings held at 9:30 a.m. on Tuesdays at the Cupertino Senior Center. If you are interested in becoming a Better Part member, please contact the Senior Center for more information or simply attend one of our meetings.